Okay. Get this set up here. Hello, everybody. And welcome to another Future Group Friday. Just make sure my usual checklist is good to go here. Music might be a little bit loud. Let me know if you're hearing anything off there, please. That looks good. How's that sound? Oh, pretty good actually. All right. Maybe I'm actually getting the hang of this. Let's not get ahead of myself. So, plan for today. We're going to start off with our usual run through of the development updates for the last week. And then we are going to shift over to the candy board that I have up in front of me right now. And then we will finish up with a feature build together, the specifications. Usually what I've been choosing recently has been just whatever kind of conversation has come up recently at the time. So today, the most recent thing I've got going on was a chat and username related request. So we're gonna get into that later, spend some time on it, see if we can come up with a good plan going forward. But I think everything else is good to go. So let's start with some development updates. So a little preface on this week's updates. It's been not a lot to show for it, but a lot of work going on right now. We're kind of in the review process of some of the more complicated things that are going into the next release. Things like your direct spectate option is what's taking the longest right now. For those who are not aware what that is, let me just pull up on the home page. If you click play now and you don't want to play casual or ranked, we do have this spectate option right here, and this was promised as a way to see your current games that are going on, players in those games, and then your recent replays, just so you could have it all in one place. Sorry, not your recent replays, recent quality replays. So if you wanted to watch like a tier 1 game that just finished, you'd be able to pull that up and take a look. So we've been working on that. It's been a lot of back and forth between myself and Orca, just making sure it's in a good spot for the next release. It's been a somewhat complicated thing to build. Unfortunately, it took a lot longer than I think any of us were hoping it to. But that's been the majority of this week. So let's actually talk through the updates. Just know that there's not a lot to show because a lot of the time has been spent on that, even though it's been about the same number of hours as usual. So a week ago would have been September 12th. 12. Yeah, a lot to scroll through here. Hold on. Holy moly. There we go. Okay, so it started with breaking down that feature. It was kind of mixed in with something else that we'll get into later. So it was breaking that apart from it. And then we finally finished the last game thing. I've talked about that 4 or 5 times at this point. Clicking that button and saying that you are going to be done after the current game. That is good to go now and ready for testing. We've got a fix to the way that we handle post-game skill score changes. So right now, if you play a ranked game and you have a very high stat line, so say you have, pick a number, 75% of your team's returns, you cap 3 times, like basically you are a stand-up player in that game, you will receive a bump in the skill score adjustment that you get at the end of that game, basically saying you won, but also you won and did a lot of the work in that win. I believe there's a similar thing on the flip side where if you lose and you do really, really well, you don't lose as much for the loss. I'm not as confident in that one, but I know that with the win one, and the reason that's something we had to fix is because if you have looked at the leaderboard lately, you might have noticed that it's a bit of a runaway freight train at the top. Some of these numbers are getting very, very large, and they just kind of keep going. Our expectation was that these would level out somewhere in the 12 to 1400 range when we first built this. That clearly has not been the case. If someone like me is at 1200, that is not the ceiling. And so what we figured out was the problem. Those post-game adjustments where if a player does really well, they get a bump. It's not standardized, not normalized. So nobody else is getting less because you got more. So if anybody wins a game and does well, they're just getting extra on top of it. So we're just adding basically extra skill score into the pool without adding players to the pool. And that results in things getting strung out towards the top, because the more you play, the more likely you are to earn more skill score. So it's rewarding players who play a lot and players who stat hog a little bit. So we have a fix coming in for both of those things in the next release. Part of it is just standardizing that gain that you get. And I think part of it is also an adjustment to how we calculate those adjustments as well. That is something that we have not worked on yet, but I want to come back to is, I think I've mentioned it in the past, those next level stats, kind of higher level assessment of how well a player is doing in a game, more than just your tags, your prevent, your returns, that kind of stuff. Like the stuff you see on the scoreboard, like those are fine to keep as they are, but it doesn't really give you the full picture on how much somebody contributed to that game. So we're going to be working on what I'm calling next level stats that will be more nuanced ways of calculating player performance. And once those get in a good spot, I think that will play into this feature that we've tweaked a lot better, rewarding players who play well, kind of stuff like that. So progress on that, which was good. That's ready for testing. We've got that large branch that I'm going to keep skipping over because I already talked about it a little bit. Oh, a big change on the way for, this is like a in between moderators and future group conversation. So there's some issues right now with consistency in private games and mutes. If you are muted in a public game, like your chat is removed because you said something that you were not supposed to against the code of conduct. Currently, if you go to a private game, you are not able to use chat, even though the mute was applied in a public game. But if you are in a private group, you are allowed to use group chat, even though you were muted in a public game. And that's not consistent. So say if you had a public group and you're muted, you cannot chat. That makes sense. But if you're in a private group, you can chat. With that in mind, if you launch that private group into a private game, you can chat in the private group chat, but not in the private game chat. And so that was just, it was an inconsistent enforcement of a rule. So we had a whole discussion with the mod team. We'll talk about that more in the actual release, how we figured out the solution to that. So you can look forward to that in the next. We'll probably be due for a mod memo as well. I think I talked about that last week. But that fix is in for consistency across the board there. So that was done. We've got an account merge fix. Currently, if you have an account merge and you have a random flare selected on your main account, you will lose your random flare selections when the merge happens. There's a fix in for the next release so that when you merge, it just keeps the flares that you had selected in the random rotation after the merge. So it doesn't look like anything on the front end, but it is a bug fix on the back end. Let's see, back and forth on the big branch, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. A lot of this had to do with the way that the joiner works. Currently, if you are in the joiner and you click you want to spectate a game, it will pick a random game for you, and that's a thing that has worked for 12 years now, but it doesn't give you the choice of where you want to go. Moderators have the ability to watch specific games, but they do it through a special backend path that doesn't use the joiner. So we were trying to add in a way for players in the joiner to pick a game they want and players out of the joiner to pick a game that they want, but they can't get there the same way because they can't both go through the joiner. But we couldn't just piggyback the way the moderators do it as we had originally planned, because they only do that by having that special moderator role granted by the server. So we had to come up with a whole different way of marking the player as eligible, but not letting them like sneak into the game, for example. So stuff like that was a bit tricky for us to work through. So we'll keep skipping over that stuff, but we just got it finalized this morning, basically, finally. So same thing I talked about there. Skip. A fix is in for backend consistency for code writing. Basically, I think people have talked about this plenty in the past. It's a bit of a spaghetti code kind of situation. It's not as bad as people say it is anymore. We've spent a lot of time over the last few years cleaning it up, but there are ways to enforce good code internally to make sure you don't have like missing characters, variables that aren't used, stuff like that. We have it's called ESLint, just kind of keeps you honest with your pull requests to make sure nothing gets out of hand, even if you miss a small thing in review. More back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Jeez, I didn't realize how much we did. I have like 60 something comments on these things. This is just excessive, honestly. What else? Oh, waiting checks. We have some fixes to hello Gendy45. Some fixes to making sure you're waiting for players in your tier and not waiting for the wrong tier. Good to go. That one got merged in. We've got more of the back and forth. Sorry, I'm just going to skip ahead through all that. Is that all we did? That might have been all we did, I'll be honest. That really took a lot out of us this week. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I just scrolled through about 150 messages. They were all related to that one branch. So sorry, not a lot to show on that, but it's done now, and we can actually work on finalizing the release. Outside of development updates, just future group stuff, we do have some updates to the flares. We finally finished up the color scheme. So we have obviously colors for each tier, like your iron color, your bronze color. Currently, if you are in a ranked game, you will see that light blue if you're in tier 1 or tier 2. I think I can show you that. No, we don't have the color on this page, sorry. Oh, profile, that's where it is. So, there's like this light blue for diamond. So just like picking a final hex for each of the tiers that we have to make sure that it's kind of distinct, even if you're not reading the text, which one is which. We have a different color for the top 3 tiers, and we have finalized the plan for the flare for all 8 of our tiers. So that should be out in the next release. You will earn a flare for Season 0, so anybody who is still playing, continue to do so if you want that flare. So that was finished up, which was good. And I think that is it in terms of, oh, we had some bug reports as well that we were working on. There was one that came in on the candy board, actually. Let's just jump to that real quick. Talking about where'd that go? I swear I just saw it. It was oh, it was related to a game replay. Let me pull that up real quick. Preface, I streamed a game on Wednesday night and I was dropping a ton of frames during that, so if this is choppy, I will probably just give up on it, but let me grab that real quick. So we had a report come in from a player who was saying that a cap happened when it should not have happened. Oops, that's not the right link. That's not what I want. Oh, it is what I want. Oh, this had the link to the replay. That's what it is. Okay, sorry. So we had this replay came in, and the player was saying that the last cap of the game didn't really make sense. So if we watch this real quick, we can see that red kind of brings the flag into the portal, but then also scores on the other side. And when you watch it a little bit slower, it's not actually a bug. So we're going to go just a few seconds before it and go frame by frame here. So if you look very closely, you can see that Rock hit Neo. Neo got the flag, was boosted through those team portals that don't affect them, and handed the flag off to Matt on the other side for the cap that ended the game. So it looked like a bug, but was not actually a bug in the end. So that was one report that came in, and then I think we'll go through the rest of the candy board now. So if anyone has development questions, obviously feel free to ask, but otherwise we're going to keep moving and get towards our other plans for today. So ranked games versus AI teams plus 1 human player from Damon. So hopefully Damon watches this stream. I have talked in the past about my plans, we'll call them, to have a machine learning program built that would kind of play the game in place of a player. That has unfortunately stalled at the moment, mostly because I've been focused on ranked and finalizing Season 0 so we can move on with the in-game shop, get the Steam release up and running. I will come back to that at some point, but where it stands now, I had crunched a few 100 not 100, few dozen gigabytes of game data trying to teach a bot how to play, basically, with pretty bad results. I think I got it to the point where I had whittled down the frames that the bot was guessing on to only frames where the correct key press based on the best player's decision was different from their previous key press. So basically, anytime they tried to change direction, that was when I thought it was most important. Otherwise, the bot would just learn to press whatever direction it was already pressing. So I took those and I tried to feed in a lot of that data, a couple dozen gigabytes, as I said, and it got to the point where the bot could predict accurately about 52% of the time, I think, was the final number I got to, which ended up being entirely useless. You can't play the game on 52% accuracy of key presses. It looks like garbage. They were just not doing anything productive. So we need to rethink the approach there. Maybe start from a little bit of a simpler goal, like a smaller map, fewer variables going on, stuff like that, and see if we can try again. But that is temporarily on hold until the game's in a better spot. So play as individual first 3 AI. I would like to do that. I think it'd be a lot of fun to have the opportunity to fill lobbies with competent bots, but competent is the operative word there. Incompetent bots, very easy to make, but they will not be fun to play with. So question in chat, I assume from the normalizing the ranked stat bumps won't be retroactively applied, might be post season 0 deal. That is entirely correct. This is going to be the case with every kind of tweak we make. It's going to be, if we fix something, it's going to be going forward. We don't really have the opportunity to go back and fix all those things, especially with season 0 where it was supposed to be a trial season. I don't really see any benefit to going through that process. So it might be applied for the last week of season 0. We'll let kind of things run for a week before we end it, just to make sure it's all stable, and then transition to season 1. But other than that, no, nothing changed to the old stats that are set in for season 0. So to respond to Damon here, I think I want to merge this into a different bot ticket. I want to see if I can find one real quick, because I know we've gotten some requests in the past about bots. Maybe I've closed them though. AI maybe. Aha. So I'm going to merge this into the develop AI one, then we'll read that real quick. So teaching AI how to play Tag Pro, as you can imagine, would be insanely difficult. Payoff would be a game changer. Fully agree with that, Ryan. Not having to wait for 4v4. I think I talked about that a little bit, a way to fill in lobbies. The other use that I saw was players who are AFK, having a bot just move for them until they come back to their keyboard, just to keep games active and fun, obviously. So would be great to do. Would be great for the tutorial as well. Just not really in our wheelhouse at this moment. So we will come back to that in the future. But for now, we'll merge Damon in there and call that one good. So let's go back to our top here. Option to remove or shorten the initial wait time before a private game starts. This is a setting that I believe existed on the old map test servers. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think that New Compty had like a pre-game countdown option. And I know that that's an easy thing for us to change, because locally on my development environment, I'm able to change that very quickly without any problems. So that should be pretty straightforward. I would need to check to make sure that there's no back-end reason for the longer countdown. Things like giving players enough time to connect to the lobby. I'm sure all the back-end processes are all good to go after a couple of seconds. If it's customizable, I don't see this being an issue, as long as players know not to set it to like 2 for ranked games, or for comp games rather, because then somebody might not get in. But I don't have a problem with this. I'm going to run this by bash. We can put in a ticket in the meantime though and get that up internally. So let's get a ticket started here. And let's say customize pre-game countdown seconds in private games. And our relevant canny post would be option to remove. Provide users with a drop-down to select the number of seconds between a game process launching and the game actually starting. Is it 20 seconds by default right now? Let's double check that real quick just so I can have it in the ticket. If I create a private game and launch and connect, we've got 20. Yep. So if we just adjust that number, that seems so fine to me. So provide user dropdown, select number of seconds. Currently, the default is 20 seconds. No need to offer longer than 30, probably. You don't know if you've ever known you could double click to join a team. You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I was having a conversation with no other than our lead developer Bash about this a week ago or 2 weeks ago. He didn't realize that either. And I thought that was a standard thing. I saw him click and drag his name and I was like, why are you clicking and dragging? He's like, what do you mean? So there's always stuff to learn in the groups tab there. But yeah, you're not the only one who did not know you could double click to join a team. So this is going to be a low effort feature enhancement rather. Not sure if or when we would get to it, but I'll talk to Bash and make sure there are no issues on the back end with that as well. So let's mark this one as planned. Let's say this has been submitted internally, has not yet been assigned to a developer, will be included when time allows. That's good enough for me. Map allows for interesting method. Oh, this is the same thing we just looked at. So I think we can close this because it's not actually a bug. While interesting, this is not unexpected behavior. See Bash comment for details. Okay, is that all we got this week? I thought we had some other bug reports, but I don't see anything here. This one, yep, talked about that already. Oh, I should have mentioned, did I gotta pull up something on the side real quick just to see if we missed any features last week. I was trying to mark stuff as in progress if we were working on it, but I haven't been super on top of that. So let me just check and make sure we didn't miss anything real quick, and then we'll move on to our spec building. Was the random flare thing? A bug report, or was that something? I forget where we figured out that that was happening. It might have been a user report on Discord. I should double check that channel real quick. Because there were some bug reports I want to talk about. Oh yeah, there was a big one that just went in. I forgot to mention it because I skipped over it right at the end of our updates. There's a current known bug with spectating games. If you have a slow connection, like it takes your computer a while to establish a socket with our joiner server, it will occasionally reset your waiting time after you've been sent to spectate, which is a big problem for players who have low or high ping not getting into ranked games because they're getting skipped because their wait time is getting reset. So that fix is in. If you have a good connection, this is not a problem for you. It's a handful of players, but it is a pretty bad issue for them. Question from Himbra. I've seen some people confused why they are spectating a minigame when they have minigames selected. I think that you can be spectating a minigame even if you do not have minigames selected. That might have been what you were mentioning there. So let's talk about that a little bit more, that feature that's in the next release. So this right here is on the way. If you are playing casual or ranked and you select that spectate box, the spectate box right here, it currently looks for any game to send you to. So there's no discrimination between game mode, region, the status of the game, quality of the game. It finds a game and it sends you to that game. It does not matter if it's a mini game or ranked. That's not ideal. That's just what it is right now. So the fix that we have on the way is that you have the option now. So you can still take that random spectate if you want it. If you don't care what you're watching, you can keep that spectate checkbox good. But if you want to pick a game It's going to give you a list of all the active games, their current status, the players in them, their ranks, the state of the game. Is it regulation? Is it clutch time? Is it overtime? What's the score? And you can pick which one you want to watch. And so you'll have both options depending on what you prefer. And then later on, we'll probably add in like a pick random ranked game. Like we can add more specific features from there. But yeah, that's the plan right now. So do you need at least 2 players to make all mini games? Otherwise, why am I spectating instead of playing? Oh, okay. So that is a different problem. So I mentioned already that it does not discriminate by region, but the selections that you have for your casual do discriminate by region, by your selections, obviously. So if you are selected for US East only and you select minigames and you are watching a minigame, there's a good chance that minigame is happening in a different region. So the way we set minigames up now is that spectating up now is all spectating is on a 10-second delay. And that was done for 2 reasons. With direct spectate that we're adding soon, we did not want players sort of stream sniping where they can have timers up or scripts running while spectating and getting more information about the full map while they're just playing on a different monitor. So that's one reason for it. The other reason is for latency. So if you are a European player, for example, maybe there's only 1 or no European games going while you wait, but you still want to watch a game. Before that delay was added, if you were spectating a North American game, maybe it was on Dallas or Chicago or whatever year it happens to be, you'd have a lot of lag to that server and you would have a bad experience watching that game because everyone's jumping around. You can't tell what's going on. And so when you add that 10-second delay, and you basically have a free buffer, and now we can send a stream of data to that European player as if they were at the server themselves. So the experience spectating has increased significantly for players who have bad ping because they can watch it as if they did not have any lag. But because of that, you don't realize that you're not on your own server because it looks normal to you. So if you're in US East and you're watching a US West minigame, you're like, oh, there's no lag. It must be around me. But you're actually watching a US West game. And you can always tell if you're spectating by looking at the scoreboard. If anyone was not aware of this, let me just pull up a replay real quick for an easy example. If you look up here, press escape and look at recorded Atlanta, Georgia. So you can see what server every game is on, even when you're spectating a live game. It will show you the same thing. So if we were to spectate this game right here, you can see that this game is on Chicago 2 because that is shown up there in the scoreboard. So lots of options to confirm that, but that's probably what you're seeing if you are watching a mini game and you are not able to join it. So hopefully that answered your question. A little long-winded, sorry. But yep, that's that. So we have a fix to, what's it called? We have a fix to the wait time thing that I mentioned in, and I thought there was one other bug report that we got on Discord that I wanted to talk about, but I cannot find it now. Still some random visual bugs. Oh, there it is. So there's some weird visual bugs where occasionally for Firefox users, the whole screen will just go dark and you'll still see player sprites. So you can see like the names moving around, but everything else is just gone. So you can't see the map. You might see like a boost. And so we haven't been able to recreate this. If you've been having that issue, please let us know. Because we honestly are at a loss. We've tried to reproduce it. We've tried to get like error logs from the console from players who have it happening to them. Nothing's coming up at all. It just seems like a random blip from time to time. So we need to not have that be a problem if possible. The other report, and I forget if we talked about this last week, so sorry if this is repetitive, but with the ranked leaderboard, I can finally show it because I got high enough to show it. Oh, wait, did I drop back down? Oh, I dropped back down too far. That's okay. If you overlap with another tier, it will duplicate some names, and it just looks really messy. Like this header looks terrible. Like it's supposed to say, this is the top of your tier, this is the tier that you are in, and then 10 players around you on the other side, but that it's just not clear. So I think we need to add a clear gap underneath the top tier 1 player. Then Diamond, your tier is fine. I think we get rid of you 60 entirely. Just keep Diamond 2. So yeah, this just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. That was a report that we got. I think we have plans for that already. So that covers the candy board. Did I get all 3 of them? I forget if I... Yeah, we got that. So hopefully Himbra, I answered your question there. If not, feel free to ask it again in a different way. Need to add the bottom of your tier for all the pessimists out there. Yeah, no. There were a lot of requests when we first released that leaderboard to see the whole leaderboard, and I was the bad guy. I said no to that because I anticipated, and I believe I was correct in this, that players would just scroll to the very bottom to see who was last and then just basically make fun of them or watch the replays and stuff. That was validated immediately because the players in the ranked server were asking who was the last ranked player so they could make fun of them. So maybe in the future we can look into that, but currently not happening. Hello, Wyatt Gibson. Thanks for the follow. And welcome to the chat. So we just talked through development updates. We just talked through some of the candy board posts that came up from the feedback tab. And now we are going to shift gears into building a spec for the week, a specification. So to give some background on what we're going to be building, I had a player reach out to me with concerns because they have a 9-year-old son, and that 9-year-old son was playing Tag Pro, which I think is great. What was less great was that they joined a game with a player whose name was Fuck. And then that player was saying things that were fine for maybe somebody in your 20s, not so fine for somebody who's 9 years old. Now, as a baseline policy, Tag Pro is technically not for 9-year-olds, but what can we do to make the experience a little bit better for players like that who might be playing with a parent and might not want to see certain messages? So obviously, easy answer, turn off chat. That's fine. Can't always turn off player names. I forget if you can turn off player names, but then you're playing a game with no names, no chat. You're not really immersed in the game. So we're trying to find some sort of middle ground where we're not over moderating public games, obviously, but not under moderating or not under providing tools for players who want a little bit more moderation as well. So what we're going to build is a proof of concept. I don't know when this would go in or how we would implement it perfectly, but I'd like to make a sort of opt-in, like sanitized chat kind of mode where we can add in phrases that are not really mutable, not really worth removing from the game, but might be a little bit more on the toxic side, maybe swear words, kind of stuff like that, and let users customize what they don't want to see, basically. So we could remove words like fuck if we needed to. We could remove things like quit the game, like messages like that. And quit the game is something that we do kind of moderate a little bit, but I want to at least start to talk about it, see what we can come up with, and then go from there. Has been there before at no name, no chat, very peaceful. Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not an option. It's just not really ideal either for players who want to still be a part of the community. Saying your only option is to shut yourself out entirely isn't really my perfect solution. So yeah, sex sells. Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's not a forced thing, but I would like to make something real quick here for an opt-in. So let us pull up a document, and if anybody wants to build something else instead, I'm open to it. But this is what I got planned for today. So let's get to it. So background. I should have been typing this as I was typing. As Dad Pro becomes more common, we are seeing parents attempting to introduce kids to the game. Great. As a result, some chat in public games crosses lines that are not worthy of direct moderation, but may not be suitable for a younger audience. Example, the reserved name fuck. Goal builds an opt-in sanitize, I'm going to call it chat feature with additional customization for removing keywords, swears, etc., and better name removal options. So this was also a request from a player I got a while back. I don't know if they ever submitted a ticket for it. I want to look real quick and see if we can find anything. But they were talking about how some players they would play with, they had personal muted because they didn't like that player's chat, but they also didn't like that player's name. and they didn't like that they had to see that name even though they couldn't see that player's chat. So they were asking if there was a possibility of a personal mute to also hide the player's chat, or maybe give the player an animal name, stuff like that. The reason we didn't do that initially is because if you have a player personal muted and then you see them again, you know that you muted that player because you recognize their name and you see that their name is italicized. If you're seeing an animal name, now you have a conflict of moderator applied mutes, which give animal names, and then your personal mutes giving animal names. You can't tell who they are if you wanted to remove that mute in the future. So there wasn't a super clean way for us to implement that. But I think that if we offered that as a profile option where it's hide the names of players you have personal muted, I have no problem with that. And then different from that, I think having chat filtering on names for players is fine. So I run into that problem with a lot of white names anyways. I'm going to assume you agree with what I'm saying. Otherwise, let me know. So we can kind of go a couple different ways with this. I'm going to start with just focusing on chat, and then we can talk about names afterward. But right now, and I want to talk about how the chat filter works as well. I'm not going to go into details of our exact filtering because I don't want players getting around it, but it is important for you guys to know how regular expressions work at a very, very basic level. So if you're not familiar with regular expressions, it's sorted into regex, and what it is a way to block certain words. It's used for a lot more than this, but we use it as a way to block certain words. So say, for example, I did not want someone to say the word loser. Sorry. So my test string is loser. Now, if I wanted to block somebody from saying loser, I could make a string that also is loser, and it would block the word loser. Easy peasy. But what if, for example, that player says L0 SER? Now they can get around the filter because they're not using an exact match. So, oh, it's blocking the text box. One moment, please. Let me move me over there. Aha. All right. So if I type in the word loser, it would get through, or it would not get through because it matches my phrase here. But if I put L0 SER, you can see it's no longer highlighted blue because it no longer matches the string. So the way that you would catch this in a regular expression, you can do something like this, and you can say that second character is going to be an O, or it's going to be a 0. And it runs away from here. So maybe they made it an I instead of an L. Maybe they made it an exclamation point. You can do all sorts of stuff with catching edge cases. So you can make it an I or a 1 or an exclamation point. And now no matter what they put in this first slot, it's going to catch all of those letters. But maybe they just remove a letter. What do you do then? Well, now you can say, okay, maybe you need 1 E, or maybe you could have 0 E's. So it's 0 or more E's. And now it doesn't matter how many E's they put, it'll still catch that word. So with regular expressions, we can catch a lot of different things in the chat without having to type out every single possible thing that somebody could type out. And so this is what I would like to use for what we're talking about here, and just kind of be a little more aggressive with it. So right now we have the hard filter. We call it the hard filter. It blocks chat messages entirely. There's a soft filter as well that lets messages come through, but also lets the moderator team know that that message was sent. And we use that for things that might be bad, might not be bad. Things like, what's a good example? RET, ret, could be short for return, could also be short for a word that is not allowed in Tag Pro. So if you say that, we get a notification for it, we can look into it and manually decide from there. So I want to use that same kind of feature with a step even below the soft filter, where it lets the message through for everybody, but it potentially modifies it for certain players who have opted into this sanitized chat, or maybe hides the message entirely if there's too much triggering the filter. So we'll get into the filter itself in a little bit. Let's just talk about how we want it to look on the user side if you are opting in to this sanitized chat. So I'm gonna put myself back on the, I'll stay on the right, why not? Let's change it up today. So, where to begin? I think I want to offer this in 2 places. It should be a profile setting, but we should also offer it in the new user onboarding. And I don't know if I have a good way of showing you guys what that looks like. Let's see if I can. Can I pull that up here? Give me 1 second, just because some people haven't seen that because they just have had an account the entire time. I think it'd be good to show what that looks like. if possible. Okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go onto the secret server, which has a different database, and then I will create an account there. And then you can see what it looks like. Sign in. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, I already have an account with that email. Shoot. Okay. Sorry, 1 second here. While I delete that account real quick, and then I'll show you guys. Just I think it's important to see what I'm talking about as I do this. Okay, delete that account. Go away. And now if I try to log in again, please work. There we go. Okay, so if I pull this up here and I switch my target to this, okay, hopefully you guys can see this okay. So this is what you see for the first time when you log in with a new account that has never played Tag Pro before. So welcome to Tag Pro. Let's get your profile customized. Pick a reserve name. Let's say soft chat filter, 12 character limit. Let's just do chat filter is my name. We offer players to pick one of the annually recurring flares. So you can pick whichever one you like the most. Move to the next step. Sorry if this is very zoomed out for you guys. There we go. And then next step, it'll show you it's saving. That's you with your little flare. And then we have a page to pick your texture pack. So we don't just force classic anymore. You can pick whichever one you like. I think we still default to muscle cups because that is the default. But if you want to pick something else, you can scroll through and see what you like. Let's go with Circle Jerk by Biscuit and Ion. And then this next page is probably the one that we would modify to. So here we have key bindings. It's not the prettiest thing. This is just a direct copy of what you will see on your actual profile. But I think this page could be customized a little bit more to add in something. I'm not really sure how I would do it. I'm going to keep this page up for a moment just so we can think through it. But you would love to see a split out of the flare choices for new players. Could you clarify what that means for me, please? Stop pinging me on Discord. Okay. Yeah, but I think just what percentage of new players choose each flare. Oh yeah, I could probably pull that up for you. That would be pretty doable. But on this page, not right now, I can't pull it up right now. I'd have to ask Bash for help with that. But I think if we added to this page and said something to do with I have two different directions I want to go with this. One part of me says make it like a parental controls kind of thing where it's like for kids. One part of me says nobody's going to pick that because most of the time it's not going to be a kid. Like it's going to be, well, it's not going to be a parent for that kid. It's just going to be the kid themselves and no kid's going to click that. So I'm like, do you have a box checked where it's like just sanitized chat? Like how specific do you get with an option that you give people here before it becomes like an obvious delete, not looking at it kind of thing? I'm not really sure what the solution is there off the top of my head, but let's switch back over to the document while we chat about that. Any thoughts? Feel free to share. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of waffle on it for a bit. So let's focus on we have 3 pages. Like, we could add it to page 3. We could add a page 4. I'm kind of hesitant to add too many pages because you want onboarding to be a quick thing. You just pick the stuff you want and go. I don't want them to sit there and be like, oh, what do I want for this setting? Is it this? Like, I don't know what any of these mean. Like, I don't want them just thinking it's this long, drawn-out process when we're supposed to just get them into the game. Maybe we could do like a heads-up display kind of settings where you have, in your profile settings, you have like an HUD section. Maybe if we had something like all of this stuff together and it was just one of, I don't know, would that be heads-up display or would that be chat? That's more chat. And you would say like sanitized chat messages. I guess you could have both of these, but that's just a lot of checkboxes to be offering a player. Like I wouldn't offer this. I wouldn't offer this. I wouldn't offer this. Like these are things you want new players to know. I don't think I want all of these for a new player. I want them to have these as their default experience. I would say maybe we could offer tutorial messages and then chat together. I don't know. I'm a little torn on what to put it with. Because it's not something you would just want to have alone. You wouldn't want an entire box with just that one checkbox on it, right? Like that wouldn't be a good look. Viewport scaling is something that we could maybe offer to users. Yeah, exactly. If they don't know what degrees are, what's the point of saying remove? Yeah, I think viewport scaling and particle effects, those could actually be relevant for some new players. If they know they're playing on a weaker laptop, that might mean something to them. So I think maybe video, audio, and chat might be, because some players know they don't want sound right off the bat. It's a good way to kind of promote that there is music. Maybe if you had a page that said play music and play sound effects, now people know those exist and they'll turn their volume on. So I'm going to say tentatively, let's grab these guys. Oh, actually the notification settings too. That's a big one. So grab these guys and then, sorry, all my colors are inverted on Google Docs. I'm gonna say a new page 4 makes more sense to me than adding it in. New page 4 with the following checkboxes. Direct copy from the profile. And the new, in the chat section, reduced to only the new sanitize chat setting. So just to elaborate on what I'm saying there, if you are in your profile settings, I think we should put it under chat, but I don't think that we should offer all of these things to a new player. I'm fine with tutorial, but I want system message. I want them to be seeing all of these things as a default. See what Grant has to say here. Audio and notify feel good to me. Video settings are helpful to know that they're there, but things like WebGL rendering and some extent viewport scaling when you've never played. Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that. I feel like, to me, I wouldn't have any idea what that means. Is there somebody out there who would know? But the people who would know probably would also know to go to your settings and change that kind of thing if you already knew what it meant. So that's a fair point. Okay, I'll yield. I'll yield. So let's say particle effects. I think anybody knows what that is. If you disable that, it's going to be easier to run. Okay. How to... No, I don't want to write. Can I draw on this? I want to draw. Is that not a draw button? Whatever. I'll just type it out. Video only offer particle effects. Audio offer sound and music, notify, add, notify, and then chat, only offer sanitize chat. Okay, that covers that well enough for me. So the profile settings, it would be just kind of what we said, add sanitize chat option to the chat group. Not to present options where you can't intuit what it means without any prior knowledge. Yeah, that seems perfectly reasonable to me. So there's that. Okay, so now that's good enough for me for offering it. The next question would be, do we want to get more granular with other things? Like, do we want to do sanitized names? Is that the same thing as sanitized chat, or is that a separate setting from chat? Because showing player names is down here, but chat is up here. Like, do you sanitize names and chat at the same time with that setting, or do you break them up and have them handled separately? I could go either way on that. I think my decision hinges on, are there players who would want chat sanitized who would not want names sanitized? Do any vulgar map names? Not of late. I think my brain immediately goes to Glory Hole as an older map name, but I don't think we've recently had any maps that would be problematic in that regard. And most players don't also read the map names that often. I think if we could cover the lion's share, it doesn't have to be perfect here. We're just looking for better than it currently is, which is nothing at all, basically. So I don't think we need to worry too much about those edge cases. We did recently fix... Oh, no, we didn't put that in yet. There's something that's not moderated that should be, but it'll be in the release notes. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that for this, at least. I think I lean toward just doing names with chat at the same time, because the players who want to see chat, so don't want to see chat, but do want to see the same word in a name, I can't think of why that would be the case. So I'm going to say sanitize chat option applies to both chat and player names. TLDR, agree. I'll take it. So my next question has to do with how we actually display this thing. So I was having a chat with the monitor team last night and this morning, talking about, if you do something like this, do you entirely remove the message? Do you replace the message with a different word? Like, do you just put the word flower or butterfly? Like, do you put a random word in there? Do you just do asterisks? Do you do the characters on the keyboard that are under a number? I don't know if they have a name. Do you do like the Twitch thing where it's like that spoiler message thing, and if you click on it, you can see the chat message? Like, how do you actually display to users that a message was blocked here? And then do you let them see it anyway if they want to? I think that's the biggest decision maker. I don't like the Twitch thing because I don't want players stopping what they're doing to click on a chat message to then continue playing. That feels more disruptive than productive. So I lean away from that. You could do like an on hover, like if you hover over the message it displays, and that's less intrusive, but still not really what I want at the end of the day. I think the leading idea, the leading thought process was to replace the word with an asterisk and just call that good enough. Yeah, I don't love substitutions either. I think it'd be funny. Like, there's ways to have fun with it. It's more prone to things going wrong, if I had to guess. So I think we're currently where the conversation left off and where I was trying to pick it up here. We left off at probably asterisks being the best solution. My next decision would be, do we want to offer anything more than that if we go that route? Do we want to say that if you hover over a message, you can see it? Or do we want to say, if you select this thing, you have no way of getting that information? Sorry, you can turn the setting off and watch the replay, I guess, if you really want to know what they said. Yeah, I think I lean towards a simpler implementation at the start of this, and then letting people decide where they want to go with it. If they want like specific whatever's out of it, they can do so. But what else are we missing here? So when a message hits the filter, let's talk about the filter too as well. So we have this filter that we're talking about where you can't say the word loser, for example. No matter how much you modify it, we will still catch that sentence. Do we only remove the characters that were matched with it, or do we remove the whole message? Like, for example, if someone says, just you are a giant loser, do we remove loser, or do we remove you are a giant loser? Because if it says you are a giant stars, like, is that better? Is that worse? I don't like you can just pull it. Like, I don't know if that's gonna cause problems. Yeah, you are a blank. Like, it could look worse than it did before. Like, I think about those. What was that? There was a social media post where I forget the exact details, but it was like a word that was actually not problematic, but it looked like this because the middle letters that got starred out like were like something that was not that bad of a word, but when you put N and R on both sides of it, it looks like a slur in your chat now. I think we need to probably remove more than just the message that hit the filter, because you're gonna potentially make the problem worse rather than make it better in the process. So I'm not sure, and that could be just a case of expanding what actually triggers it. Like, maybe the word loser doesn't trigger it, but you are a loser triggers it, and then just any word between them. Like do you, and then you do like a one of these that's like 0 to 5 characters, and it's like any 5-letter word between you are a and loser triggers it. Like, I think you'd want to be a little bit wider reaching with it. And probably get, I think I wish I could remember the exact example. It looked like the N-word, but it wasn't the N-word. That's what I remember it being in that social media post. So we definitely don't want to make that happen. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would have to be just on. It would be on the onus would be on the filter to catch the parts that matter, as opposed to the onus being on the specification that we build to catch those edge cases, if that makes sense. And then that allows us. You said how strict do you want to be? That allows us to fine tune it, because the filter is very easy to modify on the fly. I can't show it to you on stream here, unfortunately, because it has the actual filter that we use, but it would just be adding an extra field, essentially. Instead of soft filter, hard filter, it would be sanitized chat filter, and then you would just add stuff for that one only that would block these specific things. So I think that's where I'm leaning with it, but I'm glad we thought of that, though. That would have been very unfortunate. So let's say when a message hits the filter, block only the characters which triggered the filter, versus remove the entire message. And that could also be something that we offer in the settings. You could have, like, you wouldn't have to have a checkbox for just sanitized chat. You could have a toggle. So instead, it would be like a drop down for chat sanitize, whatever, and then you would have your options as no sanitization, remove filtered words, and then remove filtered messages, something like that. So you could say 3 options. Do not remove default, remove filtered messages, remove filtered words. And this one does not show that a message was sent at all, and this one stars out the message which hit the filter. Is that worth adding? Is that too much detail? Like, would people have a preference between one or the other, or would they not really care, and it would be better to just pick one that actually is the right solution now? I'm not super sure which one the right answer is now, because the concern is if you're having a message it's a bad hit, you would need to keep track of those, and we do that already. We have logging for the hard filter, where if a message hits it and it's not supposed to, I will go in and add an exception so that doesn't get blocked again. But if players don't know that they're being messaged, is that going to be... Great question, IDK. Awesome. That's why I think I might prefer this, like the stars over the whole message. But then again, who really is using that setting? If we're thinking this is targeted towards a kid, for example, who might be playing with their dad, and their dad doesn't want them seeing a bunch of swears. Easy example. Is the dad gonna care that the message was starred out as opposed to just not showing up? Probably not. My concern is that you might lose messages like, holy shit, nice job. Like, is it better for the kid to see holy star, 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 nice job, versus just not getting a message? Is one of those better than the other? Maybe. I don't know. If you're playing with your dad, I don't think you're that reliant on the people in the chat being nice to you. With, like, there might be more than just this one message that doesn't have a swear. Like, there's just this, like, hey, new guy, nice job. Like, that's not going to trigger the filters. I don't think we need to worry too much about that. So I feel like I'm leaning toward, with that said, removing the message altogether. Because what do you gain by showing them that a message was sent? Like, the only thing we lose in that case is a bad filter hit where it should not have hidden the message. And if that's the case, we should just be fixing the filter so that doesn't happen again. It shouldn't be that the player needs to know something was said to them, just doesn't want to read that one specific word. Like, even when you star out a word, you can still get the point of the message across. Like in this one down here, if I'm doing holy star, 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 I still kind of know what the message was there. And that's going to apply for mean things too, not just nice things. So I think that just removing the word itself isn't going to actually do what this is trying to do, which is make the chat friendlier for people who do not want to be seeing these kinds of things. So yeah, I think I've just kind of talked myself into an answer there, where it's just going to be remove the message altogether, and that's what it is. They're not going to know it was sent at all. It's not going to be any hard feelings. They don't, like, whatever. And then we can fine tune it from there. I think we'll start with a little bit of a narrow scope, and then as we see messages that we think should be added to it, we'll add those in along the way, rather than trying to cover everything right from the start and then trying to filter out. That's a harder way of going about it. And that's kind of how the hard filter works too. We started with a pretty small list of just, like, basically slurs that we didn't want people saying, and it's grown from there as people find their ways to get around various things. You can see how ugly it gets to catch something pretty straightforward after not that long. So I think starting simple, growing from there is probably the better approach in my mind. So I like that for now. So let's keep that as it is. How does this look now on the back end? So on the back end, this is a really messy spec today, sorry. On the back end, it's just adding a third filter option alongside the hard soft filters for a sanitized filter. Messages which hit the sanitized filter are not sent to players with sanitize chat enabled. All messages which hit the filter are sent to the mod team for review, confirmation, fine tuning. I think that is totally fine. Would we want to, this is more of a policy thing, so it's okay if this isn't super straightforward for anyone watching, but if I have a monitor in a game and they're playing and they see a message that they think should be added to that filter, would it be helpful for moderators and monitors to have a little like asterisk next to the message that says that players who have sanitized chat enabled are not seeing this message? Because that could help them potentially with exchanges back and forth. I think it might be worth it so that they know, because it would also help them if they see a message like, hey, I think this message should be hidden on the sanitized chat setting. It would be nice to know ahead of time that it already is, so that they're not getting false positives every time. So I think for mods and monitors, add a leading asterisk. Not sure what the best way to show it is. We'll just say that for now. Add a leading asterisk to messages which have hit the sanitized filter so that they know some players may not see it and can assist with fine tuning if a message they think should be blocked does not have that leading character. Anything hitting this filter is going to be a ridiculous amount of chat, lol. I mean, yeah, but also that's kind of indicative of the problem, right? That's what we're trying to solve here, so I think it's worth it. It's when I say a channel that it goes to, we have a Slack, the mod team, that just has a stream of stuff as it comes in, so it would just be a hidden channel there, which is, it's like 5 people looking at it. It shouldn't be that big a deal. Leading characters, brackets. Yeah, I don't want it to be too intrusive into their playing experience either. Italicized could work. I just don't want their eyes drawn to it if they don't have to. I don't know, I'll talk to the mod team about this and see what they so we'll talk to them, see what they want to have it be as, and then we can go from there. But I think that actually came together cleaner than I thought it was going to. I was expecting this to be a little bit more messy, but so what did we decide on? We said that we have a filter built on the back end that is independent from the hard filter and the soft filter. We have a player profile setting where players can opt into a sanitized chat, which then will hide any message that hits that third new filter. If you are a monitor or a moderator, you will still see that message, but you will see it with an indication that it would have been hidden for players who have that setting selected. Names, that's what we're forgetting. Thank you. So for names, we can't remove them because that wouldn't make sense. Do we just do an animal name then? We've got the whole list of them. That's kind of my first impression. Okay, then it would be front end. And then, oops, when a player name hits the filter, replace the name with an animal name only for players with the setting enabled. I feel like that's pretty clean, right? That could cause problems if the player tries to talk to the animal name player. So if I have the setting enabled and I say, hey zebra, get regrab, and there's nobody named Zebra in the lobby, that could cause problems. Only reason why not would be if you think someone can get value from noticing a teammate is muted. Where now there's two different categories of people that. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, players having animal names was supposed to be a compromise so that you did not know they were muted. That clearly failed miserably because now you just look for the animal name. Although some people have started to use white animal names to kind of reverse that. But I still don't like that you would say a name and it wouldn't be the person you're trying to talk to. Yeah, that's what you said next. Yeah, so what else could we do? Maybe you just do like the first three letters of the name and then ... or something. First three letters and then three asterisks and then asterisks for the rest of it. Because then at least they would say the first three letters and it would translate the animal name back into the original name. Yeah, I had that thought too. And then I was like, well, are they going to send a message? And they're like, I didn't type that. And it's the whole thing. Yeah, I don't think we could do that. I think, good thought though. Yeah, I think the best you can do is the first. I think how many letters is the biggest question, because if you send three letters and you say, I'm Cheese Doodle, CHE, I think that would more often than not be obvious who you're talking to. Maybe the problem is if you go longer than four letters, you might still be including the word that you were supposed to be hiding in the first place. So you want to you want to keep it pretty short. So how short can you get where it would be a bad word? Like how short are there bad words that you would want to hide that are fewer than 4 characters? Anything I can think of is short for a word that would already be blocked by the hard filter, so it's not allowed as a name. So we don't have to worry about things like that. But what else? Like I'm going back to the first example I gave with the username fuck. That's only 4 letters. So you would need like FUC. Is that better? It still says fuck. Like I don't know if that really solves the problem. 2 letters feels really restrictive. Yeah. But thankfully that word would have been blocked anyway, so that's okay. I'm not sure. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be better. I think 3 letters is more often than not going to catch whatever the problem is, but I kind of want to just look at some names right now and just see what we can do with these. If I pull up, is this sensitive information? Let me see if I can. Yeah, that's got IPs on it. Let's not do that. What can we do here? Oh, the leaderboard. That's an easy thing to look at. All right. Looking at the first 3 letters of a bunch of these here. And granted, none of these are bad words, so it's kind of it's a biased sample that we're looking at here, but I don't see any obvious bad words here, at least. Player search profanity. Yeah. Like this is, like, I think, would suicide be a word that you hide? Probably. So suicide by pop would just be sui. That's fine. Kill. Kill feels aggressive to be hiding. Probably wouldn't do that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything that's really throwing up alarm bells for me. Sad. I think I'm settling in on 3 letters. I think I'm comfortable with that as a cutoff. Yeah, what we've blocked "kill yourself" entirely from the chat. We've also blocked KYS because it was being misused way too often. And even now, anytime I see it hit the hard filter, it's always somebody trying to use it in a non-tag pro context. So we've cracked down on that a lot recently, just because players were not using it the way that it was being used originally as a pop yourself kind of thing. So most people say die now. We do keep track of all of those in the soft filter as well. Yeah, and if you have, I mean, even if you have die in your name, like, oh, there, hey, look at, speak of the devil, there he is. It's fuck. So, yeah, that would be FUC, whatever. Sorry, oh yeah, die. A die is also like a different word, like dice, die. I don't know. It's like, I think we're doing a lot more good than harm by cutting down to 3 on names that hit the filter. I think most of the ones that might be an issue will be covered, and that's better than. This is FUC star. Yeah, I think we would put a specific number of asterisks and not just the number of letters in the name. So it would be FUC and then like 3 or 4 stars. Maybe just 6 to be safe, so we're not accidentally doing the NI thing with 4 stars after it. Oh, night. The word night. That could be a problem. Crap. Okay, we'd have to do 3 letters and then check those 3 letters against the filter. And then if the filter doesn't like those 3 letters, we'd have to offset it by 1. So it would be IGH instead of NIG. And then that would avoid... I'm losing my mind. Yeah, so we'd need to check our sanitized name to make sure that doesn't need to be sanitized. And if it does, then you come up with a different sanitized name. It's hacky, but I think it works. I think it works. I'm gonna go with that for now, just to get it down. But so we're saying not replace the name. Replace the name only for players with the setting enabled. Name replacement involves cutting the name down to the first 3 letters and filling the rest of the name with 6 asterisks. Do not use the length of the name, EX FUC star. Thank you, Grant, there. The sanitized name, 3 letters, need to also be passed through the hard filter. Example, night, NIG star star star. Not good. Offset name by 1 letter until the 3 letters do not fail the filter check. If somehow every iteration fails, full asterisk name. Or just the first letter. Repeat with first 2 letters, then 1 letter, and there's no 1 letter filter block, so that's fine. Night to, exactly, that's, it's all night to what? So we're talking about name filtering, so maybe it was like night, it was like just an easy swear word, night fuck, and then I don't know what that means. I have no idea if that's a thing. I'm sorry if it is, but if there's a swear word and you want to take the swear word out, you're cutting down to just 3 letters. Now you've made a slur, which is worse than the swear word that was there before. So how do you make sure that you're not making it worse when trying to make it better at the same time? So we're gonna run that 3-letter combination back through the filter, make sure that doesn't also hit the filter, and then cut down to fewer letters if it does with every iteration of 3 letters in that name. Is this giving enough value to avoid just swapping the name? I think so, because again, most of the time, it's not going to cause problems from these. It's just those occasional edge cases where it creates a slur by accident that we need to make sure we're not allowing. So yeah, I think this is still worth implementing so they still get some sort of communication, but they're not saying a slur when they talk to that person. It would just be like talking to Kyrie Swerve and you're saying KYR. You could tell that's them for the most part. So I think that works. It might be the case where we release this and it turns into a disaster, but what's your offset for night for the first requirement you had there? Offset would be like a, sorry, it's a coding word, I guess. It would say instead of NIG, it would be use IGH. And then it's the next three letters. Is that useless? That might be useless. Maybe you cut down to 2 letters right off the bat. That's where the value. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. I think you're onto something there. I think use NI instead. If 3 letters fails the check, remove the 3rd letter and display the first 2 only. First letter and last letter, maybe. So the concern that we had with that, Dolphin, I think you joined after we talked about this. It's not a bad suggestion, but if you're trying to allow the player who cannot see the name to still interact with the lobby, first and last letter is not going to let them get that point across. So what we're trying to address is if I wanted to talk to somebody but I couldn't see their whole name, I could at least say man, and Manute Ball would probably know that I'm talking to them. Whereas if I see ML, I have no way of talking to this player, saying a word to this player that's going to actually indicate to them that I'm talking to them. That's what we're trying to address. Someone says GR, what are you doing? I do not. Yes, but you would be GRA. Gra. Do you go to 4 letters? I mean, we could, now that we have this second thing where you're cutting down, we could start with more than 3 letters. Do you just remove 1 letter at a time until it doesn't fail? Because if they showed NIGH, that actually would be, that'd be fine. So maybe you say name replacement involves cutting off 1 letter at a time. From the end of the name until the name no longer fails the sanitization check. The sanitized shortened name will also need to be passed through the hard filter. Continue removing letters until the filter is not hit. So that way, if we're using grant wishes, it would just be removing. We'd need a name that actually is bad. So if we had night fuck, just because we have that one, it would be night FUC. That would probably still hit. Then night FU. That would probably be fine. So it'd be night fa, and that would be their name with the asterisks. I think that is okay. You could assign temporary numbers to players each game. Each night equals 1, Dolph equals 2. Yeah, that's the same problem though, because if you're that player who can't see the actual names and you say, hey, 1, the player who is 1 on your screen does not know that they are 1 on your screen. Their name is still their own name to them. Something too, you can actually just grab a bunch of names from the leaderboard, run through this process and see what the list gives you. This does bring us back to what that guy's name is obviously just that's why I think you have to fill with more than just 2 asterisks. Like you do a set number of them. It could be night funnies for all you know. Like it's just night pho. Or do you not put the asterisks at all and just have it be Nightfa? So it becomes Nightfa, and then that's just the end of the name. So there's no indication that there was more to that name. Is that what you're saying too? I think we might be on the same page again. Because then they're not going to see any indication that there was more to it. They're going to say as much of the word as they see. And that, yeah, okay. I think, and that definitely gets the point across to the player they're trying to talk to as well, that they're talking to them. So, yeah, okay. I like that a lot. I like that a lot more than what we started with. So, yay for collaboration. So let's run through that again. When a player has this setting enabled only, just players with a setting where they want sanitized chat. If a player joins a game they are in, or they are in a game with a player who has a name that fails the sanitized filter, not the other filters. If it failed the other filters, the name wouldn't be allowed. So it fails the sanitized filter. You cut off the last letter of the name, run it through the filter again. If that still fails, you cut off another layer, and you continue cutting letters off until the name no longer fails the sanitized check. More often than not, that will result in the player still recognizing who it is, being able to talk to that player. So I'm running into an issue now where if you have a word, like maybe it is the opposite of this. Maybe their name is this, and now you're removing letters from the end, but the problem is at the start. Do you give them players a number? Yeah, that'd be a different kind of thing, though. I want to talk. Let me read this before I dismiss it real quick. So, assign temporary numbers to players in game. Shows next to the name of the scoreboard. Yeah, I'd be concerned, though, because if you look at a scoreboard, you have an order already, and then you'd have, like, numbers 1 through 8, but they're not ordered with the scoreboard because it's just the number they were assigned at the start of the game. I'd worry that gets messy pretty quickly. So I agree in a silly way. Yeah, I think I kind of like what you're going for in terms of like a representing your own number kind of thing, but I don't think it's really viable for what we're trying to do here. But back to, sorry, my nose is really itchy. When we're talking about here is if the problem word is at the start and not at the end, I think we need to look at, so let's go back to our regular expression thing here. If we're using this as an example, as a thing that we don't want to have, and we said that the word fuck is a word that we don't want to have, and we would say that the k doesn't need to be there, so fuc would still be problematic. If we find that the highlighted message is at the start of the name, we should probably start removing from the front as opposed to removing from the end. Right? I'm just looking for examples here. Like if we did this was the name, you would say, is this problem word closer to the front? Like if you splice this word out, are there more letters before it or after it? And whichever one is smaller, that's where you start removing characters from. So that if it was this one, you would start from here and you would say remove, 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 and now it no longer hits it. So they would be the Uknite. I don't know what an Uknite is. It's probably not a slur, so I think we're okay. And that would be good enough for me. And wouldn't be super obvious to anybody that that name has been sanitized, I think. Make it in order with where the scoreboard is, but that just seems like too much work. Yeah, it'd be moving too. So like you refer to somebody as 1, and then they pop and they go down to 4. Now, are you talking to them? Are you talking to someone else? I think it's just too much room for that to kind of fall apart, unfortunately. Thoughts on what I've been kind of rambling about here, though, where I think we need to check which side of the word it's on. It's not gonna, the name isn't gonna make sense, but that's kind of the point, is they're not seeing it, so it doesn't mean anything to them. It's just a bunch of letters that are whatever, but can still talk to that person. Much less clean than truncating from the back, but like I think it at least gets the point across. Yeah, it's definitely not as clean, but I think it's more effective. So name replacement involves find the index, the letter index for the first and last character in the name hitting the filter. EX name. I don't know why this is the example we've landed on, but we're just gonna stick with it. Has start index of 3 and a back index of 6, and that is starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Splice the word hitting the filter out and compare the length of the strings before and after the spliced word. So EX, we would have the equals 3, night equals 5. Take the smaller value to decide if letters should be removed from the start or the end of the name. And then cut off one letter at a time from the chosen end of the name until the name no longer fails the sanitization check. Okay. If they're equal, yeah, good point. If equal, start from the end of the name. Agreed. Sorry, I missed a couple messages from you here, Grant. Let's see. If you're trying to keep this to refer to someone, you usually use the first half of the name to shorten it instead of the last half. I agree. I was going to use you for example, but you probably do have people calling you. Yeah, I get called cheese. I get called doodle all the time. It goes both ways there. If front back equal, remove from the back or remove from whatever side needs to remove fewer letters. Well, that is what it is. Whatever side needs to remove fewer letters. Oh, you mean in the word that's failing? Like you would remove the letter F versus the letter C and the letter K. That would be a bit excessive in my mind in terms of coding. It might make more sense on the front end, but that just sounds like a pain in truth. Because then you have to run through all possible combinations on both sides instead of just going linearly. And I don't like doing that if I don't have to. So I'm gonna say no. Yeah, we're already in like the very edge case territory here. I don't want to keep creating edge cases inside of our edge case. This is probably good enough to cover 99.9% of the things that are going to come up. So I think we can move ahead with it. But yes, not a bad suggestion though. So all right, I think let's run through it start to finish. I think we're at a good stopping point for this. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. So we have a setting added to the profile for sanitize chat. Is that a good enough name? Are we happy with that? The other chat options right now are show all chat, show team chat, so just be sanitized chat. Yeah, I'll run through some actual names before we go live with this, obviously, make sure it looks good. I don't know when this would get added, but maybe soon. It's not that hard to build, actually, now that we've done it. Sorry, where was I? So, sanitized chat in the profile settings. We are adding with that a fourth page to the new player onboarding, and that might be a different spec, slightly different, but in that new spec we are offering the sanitized chat option, and then also showing them particle effects if they want to keep those on or off, audio on and off, and then notifications on or off for a game start. So giving that as an extra page so players have a little more customization. They know these things are available in the profile settings if they want it, is good. And then after that, when they actually have it enabled, if they get into a game, when they opt into that, they are opting into a filter that we have built on the back end. That filter is independent from the hard filter, which blocks messages. It is independent from the soft filter, which notifies moderators. It is called the sanitized filter or whatever you want. Doesn't really matter what it's called, which still runs on regular expressions, still works the same way as the other two filters, and still is called for every message sent the same as they are But if a player hits the sanitized filter, we are removing the message entirely for anybody who had sanitized chat enabled. We are sending the chat normally to anybody who does not have it. And we are putting a little indicator on the message for monitors and moderators so that they know that players with that setting are not seeing that message. And then that'll help us fine tune the filter as we go. Then, if a player name fails the sanitization filter, not the hard or the soft, those are independent. If it fails the sanitization filter, we are going to check what characters in that name are failing the filter. Then we are going to see if you remove those characters, are there more before or after that word? And then we will remove letters from that side of the name one at a time, the shorter side, until the name no longer fails the filter. We will then check that name also against the hard filter just to be safe, and then that name will be what is displayed in the game. More often than not, we're hoping that will result in something legible, communicable, so they can still talk to that player, but not see whatever the word is that should be sanitized in that name. And I think that's it. What happens if a person who has sanitized chat sends a sanitized message? What do they see? That's a fantastic question. Good call. I'm going to say we send the message normally as if it was not sanitized because they know what was in it, so they can be happy with what it says. Do you disagree with that? That's a really, really good call, though, to talk about that. Oops. If a player sends a message, if a player who has enabled sanitized chat sends a message that would otherwise be sanitized, display that message to the player who sent it, but filter as normal for other users. i.e., in essence, ignore the filter for your own messages. I don't think it's bad to just show it as it's sent. Functionally, all messages are sent. You're just choosing what you do or do not see, unless you're worried about someone using it as a let me block people abusing me while I abuse them. I feel like the personal mute feature covers that well enough. Like, you can already kind of do that, right? You can already hide all messages they send if you wanted to. So I don't think that hiding specific messages from them is any different. But not a bad note. But yeah, I think that covers that case well. That's a really good thing to think about, though. Nice call on that one. Probably same thing goes for names, if I had to guess. Yeah, nice call. All right. Anything else? There are just a couple of you watching now, but if you have any other thoughts on this one, let me know. For anyone watching the recording later, which is the majority of our audience, obviously feel free to leave a comment on YouTube or message me personally on Reddit, Discord, Twitch, whatever you like, whatever medium you want. I am always open to feedback on this kind of stuff. Don't feel like it's set and final because it was done on stream and you're not watching live. Like, always happy to hear from you on that. Do you need to check the soft filter as well for the name? No, so the soft filter is just filters where the message goes through and the moderators are going to review it manually. The hard filter is stuff that we know should not be sent and is blocked. So we just want to make sure the stuff that should always be blocked is blocked. If it's on the soft filter, it means that we're usually okay with that message existing. If it's a 100% fail rate, we would put it on the hard filter. So So yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that. What's the PO box? I'll get you that soon. I don't know if I have a good answer to that. So I think that'll do it for now. Grant, any other things you could think of before I call it here? Nope. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. And I will see you all maybe with a stream this weekend. I might try to stream a Majors game on Sunday, but otherwise I'll be back next Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern. And have a good weekend. Happy Friday.